Never dull moment in Bitcoin. The U.S. government is now officially winked at Americans to purchase Bitcoin. If you're familiar with the U.S. or whatnot, you know that 90% of investment is influenced by its accountants. And now with the green light with the tax code, conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, the perfect storm's coming in 2016. I'm going to guess around before April 15th. The pathway is laid, no matter how conservative people's particular accountant is. The spiel of buying yourself one whole Bitcoin if you're married, two, and if you have kids, three for your loved ones, is a very conservative pitch at the least. And the problem, obviously, which I have a suspicion that the U.S. already knows, is that there's 320 million Americans as of 2014, and there's a maximum 21 million Bitcoin in the world. So, mathematically speaking, can't even own 1/10 of one. So, the capability of owning a whole Bitcoin might be gone here soon. I mean, Coinbase is already, if you look at the wallet, it doesn't even register in Bitcoin, it registers in bits. A dollar is broken into, up to 100 pennies, but a Bitcoin is broken up into 100 million cents or places you will not. And I don't know if it's conspiracy or whatnot. China told its citizens to buy gold a few years back, and the problem with officially announcing it is you have a mad rush and run up. But by telling the accountants it's now okay and quietly buying up the supply is a, perfect, I'm not a conspiracy type of guy, but whatever you think is happening, it will definitely lead to Americans owning the world, a big portion of the world money supply if it's Bitcoin, just by going through the accountants, which have such influence over their customers, if you will. That's a nice way of saying it. Most day-to-day people don't know PEs or ratios or anything, so they just rely on advice from their accountant. And that sounds crazy, but that's just the way it is. That's the facts of life. And so, and Bitcoin is being such a brilliant way that the supply is always being on the open market. I don't know if you know this, but miners are not able to keep their Bitcoin that they mine because it's so expensive to mine Bitcoin. They do have to pay their electric bill and hardware, and literally they have to sell 95 cents of each dollar, in value of their Bitcoin if they're a kick-ass company. And even that, margins are optimistic. So there's constantly supply being put out there every day, all day long. But next year is the halving, so the supply is going to be cut in half. Supply and demand is a real thing. It's not a Bigfoot or, and each day the supply meets the demand, and less than 1 year, the supply of new Bitcoins get cut in half. So the spill of currently Americans, that's great, because how else? You can't announce it. So greenlighting it through accounts is a very quiet way for the country to dominate the Bitcoin supply. I think that's a interesting development. And as far as we're just going to be guessing and doing predictions, I predict there will also be a miner's a burn fee or destructive fee, let's say of 2 cents per transaction, that will double every halving. So 2, 4, 8, 15. And that will really bring down the price of micropayments drastically, obviously, because a transaction you could take a bunch of transactions and put it into one orderly transaction, and it really frees up the network. So we already see Coinbase, and each country will have a few major wallets, whatever you want to call them, that will do that, and they pay the 4 cents. But if there's 50 transactions, then they could still cut you a deal for 1 cent and still make out, as long as they provide a service that is grandma friendly, that will win out. And obviously that will be like gasoline on the value of each Bitcoin, because each one that gets burned or destroyed brings a scarcity. And when you look it up in Wikipedia or in a dictionary or in B and C or whatnot, they would have to acknowledge the fact that it's deflationary. In other words, each transaction brings up scarcity, which brings up the price, which I don't know if you know that the security of Bitcoin, straight up, it's every month is stronger than the month before. It is a straight line, like straight up. The hash rate and the security is just exploding, so which is great. But a destructive fee would really open up the market for grandma and bring down the price of actual micropayments by pushing them offline. Economics is a crazy field, it's like an opposite world, but adding a fee makes transactions actually cheaper for me. How is that possible? I don't want to take up lots of time, but like I just gave you an example, if Coinbase has to pay 4 cents burn fee, yet can take your and 40 other people's transactions and bundle into one nice transaction, it clears up the network, and now they're getting it for a fraction of the penny, so they could charge you a penny instead of you having to pay the full thing. And each country will probably have the 2 or 3 wallets that are dummy proof and insured, and they can add a whole bunch of stuff like that just by using a burn fee. And the burn fee would really just go to the whole ecosystem. The miners would obviously get paid more because they get paid in the value per Bitcoin. So even though the price every 10 minutes is cut in half right now to 25. It used to be 50. And you're like, oh man, that must have been the day, it's 50. But it was 50, one time for $1. So the price was actually $50 in dollar amount at one point. And the price went down to 25, for even more work. But each one's worth 200, so they're getting 5,000. So they're actually getting more. So as the scarcity ramps up, the supply each day and demand, the supply gets cut in half, and the people that the demand, they have to fight over it. So the days of being able to buy a whole Bitcoin are going to vanish pretty quickly here. There's 320 million people in 2014, and there's only 21 million. That's one country. But if they pull this off successfully and get Americans quietly to buy up, most of the supply, then they're gonna, be sitting pretty good. So, good job Bitcoin, and good job government, however you want to look at it.